Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. And for those who celebrate, I'd like to wish you a happy Lunar New Year. Now, if you've known us for a while, you know that we're big aficionados of food. It's one of our favorite things. But we love Chinese food. We spent a lot of our adult life in California, and we also spent some time in Texas near one of the best dim sum restaurants I've ever been to. So we developed a taste for Chinese food that we cannot get locally. I only know of one Chinese restaurant in a reasonable being an hour and 20-minute drive one way, and they're pretty good, but they don't do a lot of the specialty things. They're catering to the local population that thinks that chop suey is Chinese food. So, and it may be in sort of, but you know, not really. Not the way it's made to keep the local population happy. Anyway, so we decided that this year for Chinese New Year, we were going to try something totally different. We were going to really work on our preparations for various types of Asian food, with a focus mostly on Chinese. We occasionally do Japanese too, or something else. We do a very nice Vietnamese spring roll in the summertime. But what we wanted to do now, because it is winter and we can enjoy steaming things and cooking things that would make the kitchen warm, was we wanted to focus on some of our very favorite dishes. Now, our taste for these dishes was acquired eating at restaurants in both California and Houston where there weren't a lot of non-Asian folks there. Some of the older people who worked there didn't speak English. And that's just fine because we wanted authentic stuff. We didn't want stuff that was invented to make Americans happy. We developed our love for authentic Chinese food there. And recently I found a blog online. I found a couple of blogs, but the one that really stood out in my brain was Woks of Life, the W-O-K-S of life. So it's a mom and dad and a couple of adult children that are all Chinese by origin and absolutely adore Chinese food and have run Chinese restaurants and worked in Chinese restaurants and all kinds of stuff. And they've also done a lot of research and actually gone back to China to visit, things like that. So they have a pretty good sense of what's real and what's not, and they'll tell you up front, this is not something you'd find in China, but here's how you make the restaurant version of it in the United States. And that's fine. I totally get that. You're catering to your customers. We all do that. But what I'm going to make today is bao. Now, it's like kind of the bao, that's the way it sounds. It's actually spelled B-A-O, and it is a type of steamed bun. Now, you can stuff them with all kinds of things, but today I'm going to have two different stuffings, one of which I cheated and bought. It's a red bean stuffing available at any decent Oriental market. There's one about an hour and 15 minutes from here, which is open once in a while, a couple of days a week. And that's where I picked this up. But I'm getting most of my supplies on Amazon, not because I love Amazon, but because I can get it and I don't have to drive all over the state to get it. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is just literally start the yeast dough, because it is a yeast dough. And when I first read this recipe, I said, that can't be right. There's no way this could be the right dough. There's no way this will taste right. I'm actually making a double batch today, but we'll give you the recipe for a single batch. I'm making a double batch because I want to make both the red bean bao and also the custard-filled bao. And I want to be able to freeze them, you know, make a whole stack at once and freeze them. We've been doing that for a while with wontons and some other stuff. And it's a great way for us to have instant food in the freezer. There is no such thing as takeout here, and there's certainly no such thing as Chinese takeout here. So if we want Chinese takeout, we have to make our own and freeze it. Step one is literally a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of yeast. I use Fleischmann's active dry yeast. It is reliable in our climate. An important concept. I have tried some other varieties, and to be honest, we didn't like them as well. So we have sugar, we have yeast, and we have a half a cup of water. Okay. I'm just stirring this around to get it going, and I'm going to put it in the pantry, covered with my customary trusty tea towel that I used for fermenting all my bread. So I'll be right back. Okay, that has to stay for 15 minutes. Okay, while that is sitting, I'm going to start pulling together the rest of the stuff. I need to make the custard, and I'm also going to get out the red bean, which is in the refrigerator, and let it come a little bit more to room temperature. Because it's easier to work with at room temperature. Now, I need 2 eggs, some powdered sugar, milk, heavy cream, flour, cornstarch, or wheat starch, they say. I have both. I'm going to use cornstarch because it's here. Although I could use wheat starch. I'll use cornstarch this time. Next time I'll try it with the wheat starch. I'm going to be using pot with a bowl on top as a double boiler size of bowl. That should be perfect. Now I always make sure my bowls are clean, but I make sure they're double clean when I'm doing anything with eggs or custards, because some things can be totally screwed up if there's any kind of other things in them. Dust. Come on, dust. There we go. Dust. We are in Arizona, so this is the land of dust. All right, so let's see how far down that goes. Goes down that far, so I'm gonna start some water. I've only made this once or twice, so I have to actually read the recipe. When I make pizza, I don't even read the recipe anymore. It's bad. You know you've done it a million times. 2 eggs. Eggs and powdered sugar. So 2 eggs. So do we have a cream, or did my husband use it and not tell me? Haha, not even opened yet. Awesome. All right, so 2 eggs. Powdered sugar, half a cup. Bong, 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 bong. Quarter cup of milk. 3 tablespoons. That's annoying. Now I am going to use a spatula to scrape this because this cream is very thick, and we're going to lose quite a bit if we don't. And I'm trying to be nice and precise on this. So, there we go. going to make a bit of a mess of the counter, which I'm allowed to do because I'm going to clean it anyway. I need 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to get them melted ahead of time. I need the flour, the starch, and the dried milk powder. Now, they want me to sift it in because you want this to be really smooth. So, let's see what size we need here. We need 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. One, 2, 3. 3 tablespoons. And you're going to watch me cheat right now because I don't want to lose any of my contents, but I don't want it to lose it on the counter either. Then a 1/4 cup of cornstarch or wheat starch. I'm going to use cornstarch this time around. We'll see if we like the wheat starch better next time. We didn't have it in the last time I made this, so. And a 1/4 cup of dry milk powder. Woo! No ears left. Okay, that is my dough. So I'm going to stop this process for just a minute because it's time to do the next step on the dough. And I don't want to interrupt the making of the custard. Noisy. Dough. A deer, a female deer. No. Okay, so we've got that started, and we just need to add flour and powdered sugar and salt. And a little bit of milk. There's the butter that's melted. Set you aside and bring in the dough. And I don't know if you can see this or not. Let's see. Hope I can do this without making a mess. Ooh. Looks like the bubbles, tiny, tiny bubbles. And it smells like we're making beer, which is okay. That's not a bad smell. All right, so we just have water, sugar, and yeast in here. We're going to add flour. And I'm going to double this, so I have to make sure I'm thinking with all my brain cells instead of just with a couple. I may have to go get another thing of flour. Yeah, I'll be right back. I got to go get some more flour. Okay, I have to go into backstock storage. Yeah, this is our backstock for flour. And what happened was, it's in a bag because in the process of bringing it home, we managed to get the paper bag to split. So we didn't want it dusting everything else in the world with flour. So it went to a plastic bag, and then it went into back storage, which is a food safe bucket in a cool spot. And this wound up in a little teeny food safe bucket by itself because it didn't fit in the big one. Close, but no cigar. Flour, 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar, which in this case is 6 tablespoons of powdered sugar. And we have to go into backstock for that too. Woo! There's just times when you kill it all at once. 4 tablespoons is a 1/4 cup. So there's 4 tablespoons. They're going to be covered with flour and sugar and everything. Sugar tastes good at least. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which makes it a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I am anticipating needing, let's see, 1/3 of a cup of lukewarm milk. Should be lukewarm or at room temperature. So I need 2/3 of a cup, which is right there. Okay. I am warming up some milk. It should be at room temperature. I do not have room temperature milk. I keep my milk in the refrigerator. So we'll get that in there. The reason you want room temperature milk is because you want to keep your yeast happy. You don't want it to get too cold and stop working. But you don't want it too hot or you'll kill it. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. Now, last time I did this, I used a spoon, and it worked just fine. But since I'm making a double batch, I'm going to cheat and use a dough hook. So that's going to do its thing. And that's going to do its thing for a while. Probably about 5 or 8 minutes. So while we're doing that, we can get back to this. Oh. I know what that sound is. It means I need to lock down my dough hook. Last time I had just a little bit of problem with this dough being not quite wet enough. So I added a little bit more liquid this time. I think I'm going to still need to add just a smidge more. It's supposed to be a moderately dry dough, but not bone dry, which is where we are right now. Add a tablespoon of water. Let's see if that fixes it. I've added in the butter, the melted butter. And I need to then sift in the rest of this stuff here, which is corn. Brits would call it corn flour, cornstarch, powdered milk. Woo, dusty. But what using a sifter solves is there's no lumps, because there's some lumps in here. There's always something that gets just a smidge lumpy. If you don't have a sifter, use some sort of a strainer, something like this. Any of these sort of things will work. You don't need the finest strainers, but something like that would work just fine. And then we're going to beat this together again. Now my goal is no lump. And as one of the French chefs on Masterclass said, and now you whisk forever.